Welcome to MyShliach Story Hour Chassidim series.
Okay, let's continue, Rabbi Isai. We left off at the end of last episode. We shared a story of the Maharam Rottenberg that Reb Hillel Paritcher used to bring about often with his Talmidim. And Reb Hillel Paritcher explained that although the Yid Reb Alexander that paid a lot of money to have Reb Meir brought to Kfuras Yisrael, and he chose as a result of that to be able to go to Gan Eden and have a chelik in Gan Eden next to Reb Meir, next to the Maharam Rottenberg. The other option was to have wealth for him and his children forever, and Reb Alexander chose to go to Gan Eden. Reb Hillel Paritcher would say that choosing to go to Gan Eden was a good Aveda before the Skalas of Chassidus Chabad. But now the Chassidus Chabad was Niskala, was revealed, and we know the importance of a mitzvah. We know the value of a mitzvah. We know what every mitzvah accomplishes here in this world. And with a mitzvah, and that meant Atzmos, had he been a Chosid, Reb Hillel Paritcher would say, he would have chosen the other option. Which leads us to another story. What's the story? This story actually happened with our Rebbe. You see, between the years of Tavshin Tezayin and Tavshin Chof Daled, 1955 and 1963, we know that at Simchas Torah, the Rebbe, at about 5 a.m, would teach on Nigin to the Chassidim. And many Chassidim, many Nugudim that we know. The two Kianu Amechos, and Darkach Olekeinu, and Anim Zmires, and Hu Olekeinu. The Rebbe's Nugudim were taught, for the most part, on Simchas Torah. Now, in Tavshin Chof Beis, in 1961, the Rebbe taught the Nigin of Anim Zmires. Anim Zmires. And the Rebbe said the following story, Benegea to the Nigin. What did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said that in a certain town, in the morning after Yom Kippur, the people from the town came into the shul. They came extra early to daven Shachris, because the minig is that the day after Yom Kippur, you're supposed to daven earlier. That's why even in 770, the Rebbe would daven usually at 10 o'clock in the Rebbe's minyan, but the day after Yom Kippur, the Rebbe's minyan started earlier. So the people came to the town earlier to daven, and they saw that there was a guy sitting in shul. Since the day before, he had his talis ibn cup, his talis was over his head, and he was going around and around the bima, dancing and singing the nigin. The fast ended like 9 hours earlier, and this guy did not go home. He was going around the bima singing the nigin faster and faster and louder and lebediker and starker. And while everybody had left the shul to break their fast, he couldn't pull himself away from this inspirational feeling of the nigin. And then the Rebbe taught the nigin. Now you can imagine, Kindalach, that when the Chassidim heard the story, who do you think the guy in the story was? I mean, it wasn't me, it wasn't you, it wasn't anybody that we know. So, but Pashtus, it was the Rebbe. I mean, who else would it be that would have such an experience that daven Yom Kippur, and the day after Yom Kippur is still living in Yom Kippur mode with a talis and a kittel singing Anim Zmiris and not going home? So they thought it was the Rebbe. Well, after Yom Kippur, sometime after Yom Kippur, there was a Chassid. He was also a very, very special character, and maybe we'll talk about him one day. A Chassid from Eretz Yisrael. His name was Reb Reuven Dunin. And Reb Reuven Dunin, as a guest from Eretz Yisrael, went into Yechilis to the Rebbe. And in true Reb Reuven Dunin style, character, he told the Rebbe that, Rebbe, the Chassidim outside are saying that the person in the story that the Rebbe said about the Nigin, Anim Zmiris, and Simchas Torah is actually the Rebbe. Is that the case? And the Rebbe answered Reb Reuven and said, no, it wasn't me. In fact, says the Rebbe, the person in the story wasn't even a Chassid, because the Chassid would have made a different request. And then the Rebbe went on to explain the details of the story. Kindalach, the Rebbe said there was one time a very, very wealthy Yid. Let's call this Yid Baruch. This Reb Baruch was very, very wealthy. And one day, he was taking a stroll outside, somewhere outside his property, into the main town, when he heard a cry, a geshrei, tears coming from a dilapidated hut. Right away, when a Yid hears somebody crying, even a Yid like Reb Baruch, who's so wealthy, he can't hold himself back. He right away goes over to investigate. Please, don't cry. Is there something I can do to help? Please, I'm ready to help with anything I can. I'm a rich man. Please, Reb Baruch, the lady of the house said. My husband's been thrown into jail by the local parents. I don't know what's gonna be. And the Yidden who helped free people, they said they need a lot of money to help get my husband out of jail. I don't know where we're going to get this money from. How much money does he need? I'm ready to help with any kind of money that you need. I'm a very rich man. I've helped a lot of people before when it comes to Pidyon Shvuyim. I love to do the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim. Maybe that's why the Eibishter benched me with so much money. No, it's a lot of money. It's probably like 250,000 rubles. 250,000 rubles? You sure it wasn't 250 rubles? No, it was 250,000. Are you sure it wasn't 2,500 rubles? No, it's 250,000 rubles. Oh, let me see what I can do about it. Please, let me see what I can do. And so, Reb Baruch goes home. He thinks 250,000 rubles. How am I going to get this kind of money? How is she going to get this kind of money? There's no way anybody's going to come up with this kind of money. How are they going to save this poor Yid from the dungeons of the Paris? I can't bear to see this Yiddish lady in pain. And Reb Baruch sits down and he makes the cheshbon. And he sees that if he was to sell everything that he owned, if Reb Baruch sells all his fields and his house and all his belongings, then Reb Baruch, who's the rich man in the town, after he sells everything he owns, then he'll be able to come up with the money for the parts. And Reb Baruch thinks about it. He thinks about it. Yes, I'm going to do it. I cannot bear to see this young lady with her children in such pain. I'm going to sell my house, I'm going to sell my fields, and I will give the money to the parrots. And sure enough, Reb Baruch sells everything, and he goes over to the parrots and he hands them the money. The parrots then gave Reb Baruch a note to give to the jail guard, instructing him to free the poor man, the Yidale. Ha ha ha, says the jail guard. You rich man Baruch, where you come up with this kind of money? I heard you sell all your houses and your fields and all your belongings and everything. You have no more rubles just to get this moshke out of jail. Ha ha. You must liking this moshke very much. I actually don't know moshke at all. I just couldn't bear the thought of his wife crying. Ha ha! You don't like to hear Moshke's wife crying. Ha ha! Well, let me tell you something. Probably spend much time in Moshke's house right now, because I hear, Baruch, rich man, you don't have house anymore. You don't have table. You don't have chair. You have nowhere to lay down on pillow at night. I don't understand how that's any of your concern. Please, open the door and allow Moshke to leave. Ha! Listen to me. I have good idea. You need extra pillow? You need a bed maybe? You can take it from the house of Moshke, because he don't need no bed and he don't need no pillow anymore. Ha ha! I don't understand what you're saying. Moshke will be going home right now with me. I don't think so. Let me get my keys out. Let me open the door. You see, last night Moshke no feel good, and this morning he died.
What?
That's right. He dead. No more. He's kaput. So you now pay 250,000 ruble to get a dead Moshke. Congratulations. You're not a winner today. Please, take this dead man out of my jail before he starts smelling it up. You could imagine how heartbroken Reb Baruch was. He sold everything he had, his house, his fields, his belongings, to the last penny, just to save the Yid from jail. And now Reb Moshe had passed away from starvation, from anguish. He spent all this money, and he was not able to reunite the man with his family. Instead, he took Reb Moshe and brought him to Kfuras Yisrael and allowed him to be buried as a Yid. That night, Reb Baruch had a dream. And in his dream, Moshe, the Yid who he tried to save his life, came to Reb Baruch and said, Baruch, when I came to the Beis Din Shamayla after I passed away, it was decreed right away that I should go to Gan Eden. However, I owe you something for your efforts to free me. And you can ask me. You can ask either to get back all the money that you spent, your house, your fields, your riches, or you can ask me for a ruchniistic reward, a spiritual reward. Do you want to experience Gan Eden while you're living here in this world? Reb Baruch replied that I would like to hear a song. I would like to hear a song that they sing in the heavens on Yom Kippur. I want to experience that Gan Eden on Yom Kippur. Well, that is the difficult request to fulfill. However, being that I am so indebted to you, I will see to it that your wish is granted, said Moshe. And with that, Baruch wakes up. Some time passes, and Baruch completely forgets about the dream. However, a few months later, when Reb Baruch came to Shul for Kol Nidre on Yom Kippur, he put his talus over his head, and the person, this Moshe who he tried to get out of jail, was actually a hidden tzaddik, appeared to him and taught him the song, taught him the niggin of Adam Zmiris. And that's how Reb Baruch stayed the entire Yom Kippur in Shul. He heard the niggin of Adam Zmiris taught to him from Gan Eden. He experienced the taste of Gan Eden. And by the time Yom Kippur was over, he still didn't feel like he was fasting. He didn't feel hungry. And spent the whole night dancing and singing the niggin of Adam Zmiris, dancing around the bima until the next morning. And the Rebbe concluded the story by telling Reb Reuven Dunin that it's clear that this story did not take place with a chassid, because a chassid would not have thought about himself and his spiritual ruchniistic achievements, what he could gain out of it. Oh. Instead, you know what a chassid would ask for? The chassid would have asked for all the money to be returned. Not because the chassid wants to live a rich life and a fancy life. No way. But because the chassid knows that with that money he can do more mitzvahs. He can do more pidyon shvuyim, and more achnasas kala, and more achnasas archim, and help more people with it. This is the same idea as the story that Reb Hillel Paritcher would share about the Maharam Rottenberg. The avodah before Chassidus was to focus on one's spiritual gain, one's own personal avodah. But now, Kindalach, our avodah now is to see what we can do begashmius in this world to make the gashmius ruchnius. What we can do to help another yid. What we can do to make the simple things halik. To make a walk in the park a ruchniistic experience by saying Tanya Balpeh. How to make candy halik by making a bracha and using it for a Mesilas Shabbos or a Farbrengen. Not to run away from the Gashmias, not to run away from this world. No. To elevate this world. To see how we can use everything that Eibishter gave us for its ultimate purpose, and through that, experience Atzmos. So although this wasn't a story per se about Reb Hillel Paritcher, I felt it was important to share because it brings out the same point of something and a story that Reb Hillel Paritcher would often bring about with his Talmidim. Just to end off this episode with one more story about Reb Hillel Paritcher and the difference in the Aveda of Chabad and Chagas. Chassidim always sing, Ashreinu, Matev Chelkeinu, Ashreinu that we are Yidden, Manoim that we are Chassidim, Umayofa that we are Chassidi Chabad. And Reb Hillel, who used to be a Chassid of Reb Mortal of Chernobyl, he was a Chernobyler Chassid that then chose to become a Chabad Chassid, something we spoke about in the previous episodes. He had a unique perspective on the difference between Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus Chagas, something that we touched upon a few times. Now, Reb Hillel's tzidkus was recognized by all Yidden, anybody that knew him. Now, some of them were inspired to become Chassidi Chabad, others not. Others stayed their own regular non-Chassidim or non-Chabad Chassidim. They had their own Chassidishe Rebbe. And one of the people who became extremely close to Reb Hillel was from a different Chassidus. Now, versteht sich that Reb Hillel would always look out for an opportunity to learn Tanya with another Yid. And even though this Yid was not a Chabad Chassid, Reb Hillel would learn Tanya with him. Now, like all Chassidim, this Chassid would go to his Rebbe from time to time. And one time, when he was by his Rebbe, he mentioned to him that he has a Chavrusa Shaft with Reb Hillel in Sefer HaTanya. Oh no, his Rebbe told him, you must stop immediately. At that time, there was tremendous opposition in public about learning Chassidus. Even among other Chassidish Rebbes, they didn't necessarily learn so much Chassidus. Right? The Misnagdim were also giving a lot of issues, but they felt that Chassidus has to be learned not by everybody, not by Pashta people. Chassidus can only be learned by big Talmidei Chachamim, big Avdim, people of great stature, and the most Chassidim should just follow the ways of the Chassidim, just follow the Darkei Chassidim. They should just do mitzvahs with simcha, and go to the mikveh before davening, and be connected to the tzaddik, like we said, tzaddik b'munasa yichya al tikya yichya al yechaya. Just go through the motions, and the Rebbe will take care of all the learning and the Aveda for you. You just gotta go with the flow. And obviously, Chassidus Chabad is not like that. Chassidus Chabad demands that we have to do the work by ourselves. We also have to learn and we have to understand. But this person's Rebbe told him that he has to stop learning Tanya. So, sometime after coming back home, he went to Reb Hillel to discuss something, whatever they were talking about. And when they finished the conversation, Reb Hillel took out a Sefer Tanya and wanted to continue learning with them like they did for many years, b'chavrusa. But this other guy, this other chassid said, I can't. My Rebbe told me that I can't. My Rebbe said, he forbade me from learning Tanya. So hearing this, Reb Hillel responded to him as he says, listen, everything in creation has a special quality which makes it different than everything else. For example, everyone knows that if you compare a foot to the head, right? The person has a foot and a person has a head. Everybody knows that the head is much greater than the foot. However, there are certain things that a foot can do that the other Eivarim can't do, right? Without feet, Rahman al-Litzlan, the head won't be able to go anywhere. The head could want to go places, but at the end of the day, it needs a foot to get there. So in the aspect of wanting to get somewhere, the foot is a lot greater than the head. However, the foot realizes that its place is with his abilities. And it's not to be a head. Vei is mere to the person whose foot decides, you know what? Because the head can't go anywhere without me, be'emes, I'm much greater than the head. So, me, Mr. Foot, now I'm going to become a head. No. A foot remains a foot, and a head is always higher than the head. This concept, Reb Hillel explained, applies to everything in creation. The recognition and the acknowledgement by every entity that everyone has its place, and everything has its maila, and everything has its purpose for what it was created for. And this is where its chayes come from. The same is true, if it's true with Gashmias, it's obviously true with Neshamas. And there's many different levels of the Neshama. Some Neshamas are higher than others. Some Neshamas are lower than others. Some Neshamas are like a foot. Some Neshamas are like a head. Not the Neshama that's a foot is a bad Neshama. Chas v'shalom. It just has a different avodah than the Neshama of the head. And even within the head Neshamas, there's different levels in the head Neshama. For example, many people are considered tzaddikim. But we also have to realize that some tzaddikim are greater than other tzaddikim. Right? This is what Reb Hillel Paritcher is explaining to this Chassid. And after the whole introduction, Reb Hillel looks this Chassid straight in the eye and tells him, in Chassidus too, there's a head and there's a foot. And while your Rebbe is obviously a head, he was chosen to be the head of those who are on the level of foot. And therefore, he knows his level. And he told you that thinking and concentrating on Chassidus Chabad is not your purpose, and is the responsibility of a Chassid who is on the level of a head. And since you're his Chassid, you're on the level of foot, not the level of head. You have to do what he tells you, and not learn Chassidus Chabad. But you, Reb Hillel tells him, you don't know for sure which level your neshama is on. You don't know which level your neshama is connected to. Perhaps it's true that you're considered a foot, but there's also the possibility that your neshama is associated with the head, and therefore you should learn Tanya. And it's important that you know what defines one as a head and what defines one as a foot. Chassidus Chabad elevates a person. So it's true, until now you didn't learn Chassidus Chabad because your neshama was brought into the circles of Chassidus Chagas. Foot Chassidim, let's say, in the mashal of Reb Hillel. But when a person learns Chassidus Chabad, it gives the person the ability to uplift himself and understand himself and his neshama on a true level. And therefore, Reb Hillel says, it's still important for you to learn Tanya. And Reb Hillel is always looking to share the warmth of Chassidus, especially with someone coming from an environment that didn't have Chassidus like Reb Hillel. Remember, Reb Hillel made the choice with great Mesiras Nefesh. One of the earlier stories we said, where he fell off the wagon, when his Rebbe had a kaped on him, the Chas v'Shalom, he could have passed away from choosing to leave the Chernobyl Chassidus and become a Lubavitcher Chassid. But it was so important to him to learn Chassidus, to learn Tanya, and to share that with somebody else. And most important of all is to take what we learn in Tanya and in my Maimorim and Sichos from Rebbe and apply it to day-to-day life. It's not about running away and being, disconnected from the world. No, it's about being in the world and finding another opportunity to do another mitzvah and another mitzvah and more Avos Yisrael and more Avedas Habirurim, and to finally make this world a Dira B'Tachtenim and to complete our Shlichus, each and every one of us individually and the Shluchim collectively and all Yidden, to bring about the Geula Amitis Vashlema. May it happen right away.